Hi, I'm Dr. Richard Pitts, the Outpatient Medical Director for Prospect Medical Systems. I'd like to spend a few minutes with you today talking about COVID-19 vaccinations and in particular, what is mRNA and how does it work? And by the end of this short video, my hope is that you will be better able to understand mRNA, that you'll understand how mRNA is used for vaccinations, and you'll be more comfortable with an mRNA vaccine. So what is mRNA? mRNA is a naturally occurring substance. It's present in our cells and it directs our cells at this very moment, day in and day out. mRNA provides direction to our cells to produce various substances such as proteins. So mRNA-based vaccines will instruct our cells to produce a harmless protein like the spike that's on the virus that causes COVID. Now, we're not talking about giving you the COVID virus, just simply having the mRNA create this protein. Now, the spike from the protein, or the protein spike from the mRNA instruction, it's recognized by our immune system as a foreign substance, and that's the key. That is where the creative mechanism of our immune system, it produces these protective antibodies, and once we have them, it can eliminate the virus from our system completely, or if a little bit gets through, it becomes a very mild illness. Unlike many other vaccines, there is no virus whatsoever in an mRNA vaccine. So I came up with a simple example to help explain mRNA, followed by what happens in humans. So very simple, I use a Cook's analogy of mRNA. So let's take, for example, just bear with me for a moment, that there's a nice lady by the name of Sherry, and she goes to her favorite restaurant. Sherry looks at the menu. The waiter's there, she gives the menu back to the waiter and says, I'll have a burger, some fries, and a drink, okay? The waiter then takes Sherry's order to the kitchen. Well, first person that the waiter gives this order to is the cook's assistant. So the cook gets all of the items together and hands it off to the cook, who then makes Sherry's meal. Well, it turns out Sherry is a scientist. And now Sherry goes back to her lab after lunch and she looks at the menu. In this case, it is the list of items, in this case amino acids, that make up the protein of the spike that sits on top of the virus. So she says, okay, I want this particular protein to be made. So Sherry creates the order. She hands it off to the waiter or waitress. In this case, it's mRNA. And she gives the order to the waiter or waitress, and the waiter or waitress carries it off to the human cell. Okay, so what happens now? So just like in the restaurant, in the kitchen, the cell, in this case the cook's assistant, makes a protein exactly like the spike on the COVID virus, but there's no danger to us in that production at all. Sends it then, once the cell has produced the protein, pushes it out into the blood system, in essence sending it to the cook. The cook in this situation is the immune system. So the immune system says, hey, wait a minute, that protein's not supposed to be here. I'm going to produce antibodies to tie up that protein so it can't harm my human host. Okay, so now we're just going to talk a little bit in scientific language what happens. So here's this nasty virus that's causing us all these problems. Has this protein spike on top, okay? And then what happens is it says, okay, I'm going to have a message taken by the mRNA into the cell to create that protein, that same protein, so that the body can recognize this foreign. Now, there is one small step here. mRNA is only supposed to be inside the cell. If it's in the blood, the body sees it as not supposed to be there and destroys it. So scientists, some very smart scientists, decide, hey, what if we put a little lipid or a little fat around each one of those little mRNA molecules? And that'll protect it long enough to get into the human cell so that it can produce the protein. It can pass that information off to the cell. Very cool to do that. All right, so now the mRNA has given the information, and the body has produced the protein, and now this protein is in the immune system where it's producing these antibodies. And then what happens is when the next time that is exposed to the virus protein, but in this case, that protein is sitting actually on the virus, and that virus means to do us harm. So the antibody attaches to that little spike and renders the virus particle neutral. It can't harm us. And then when it's floating around the blood, it either dies or something comes along within our body's mechanism and destroys it. It's important to realize the only way that a virus can do its harm is to get inside our cell. Once it reproduces itself, it destroys our cell, and that's why we get sick. So it's a very cool system. Sometimes after the second shot, people will complain, if it's a 2-shot system, they'll complain that they might have a little low-grade fever, some aches, muscle pains, etc. That's simply a sign that your immune system is ramping up to make those antibodies to protect us. That's all it is, nothing more. What about safety? I think it's going to turn out that the mRNA vaccines are incredibly safe. Early on, there was a rate of about 1 in a million people were having a really severe reaction, and what they call an anaphylactic reaction. Not unlike people getting a bee sting, all these chemicals get released and it causes harm to our body. Now people are very, very, very carefully screened, and it's rare now that we're going to have that kind of anaphylactic reaction because we screen out those people who are most likely to have it. Doesn't mean there won't be a 1 in 10 million or 1 in 2 million, but it's extremely safe, and there's always medical personnel there that can treat it and can treat it successfully. So I hope that my goal of helping you to feel more comfortable about mRNA, what it is, what it does, will help you to make the right decision when it comes to getting a vaccine. It's nothing more than the ability for scientists to put this information into our cell to produce the protein that our body recognizes as foreign, and then what happens is we get an antibody to this terrible virus. Once you get your shot, you get your antibodies. For all practical purposes, we will be able to go about our lives again. I hope you make the right decision, and talk to your healthcare provider if you have more questions. Thank you for your time. I hope this was beneficial to you. Have a good day.